So I've gotten a lot of questions about septic tanks, leach fields, and wells. A lot of people that have never owned a house before or lived in an apartment aren't really familiar with this, so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time on what those systems are. So in Maine, it's very rural. A lot of areas don't have public sewer, public water. You're going to have a well, a septic tank, and a leach field. So I'll start with the septic tank. In this case, it's easy because you can almost see the definition of the tank in the ground. This was replaced a couple years ago and it really hasn't filled in yet. The wastewater basically comes in a pipe underground into this tank. And this tank actually has a lid on it, and you can, there's the top. I think that's either the lid or potentially that might be part of the box, but there's a lid right here that you can access this tank. Inside the tank there's a baffle in the middle. The liquid and solids come in to the backside. The liquid rises, the solids sink. When the liquid hits the top of the baffle, the liquid goes over the baffle into this side of the tank, and that liquid gravity feeds through a pipe down to a distribution box, which then sends the liquid out into pipes into the leach field. That water will just sink through and filter through the gravel and sand, clean itself, and go out into the environment. As a new homeowner, I highly recommend having a separate septic tank inspector, specifically who will test your tank and your leach field to ensure that they work properly. I think it's very important to buy a brand new house to make sure that these systems work. The other thing I would ask to talk to your realtor about is getting your tank drained. The solids will build up over time. It may be 5-10 years, but you eventually will want to pump out the solids, clean out your tank, and start fresh. So I would talk to your realtor about that to decide whether that's something you want to ask for. But you want to make sure that your tank and your leach field are working properly. In this case, it's also pretty easy to see the leach field because it's pretty new. A leach field is really nothing more than, if I'm standing on the distribution box now, there's in this case, I think probably 3 pipes, a pipe there, a pipe there, and a pipe there that take the wastewater, feed it out, and distributes out. Now, the other thing to know is these are designed specifically for the house. But a lot of times a house is built and then added on to. They add bedrooms, they add bathrooms. And if the septic tank and the leach field were never adjusted for the addition of new bedrooms and new bathrooms, you potentially could be in a situation where you don't have a large enough tank or a big enough leach field to handle the amount of wastewater. So that's another good question to talk about with your realtor and the inspector, your septic tank inspector. Okay? The other side of this is the well. And way over on the other side of this property, I can see it from here, there's a blue cap, is the well. So they brought a machine out, drilled down into the ground until they found water. These things can go anywhere from 75 to 350 feet deep. It just depends on where they find water. There's a casing, a steel casing. Down inside that casing is an electric pump, and this pipe here is the electricity coming from the house over here, connecting to that pump, which is way down in the water, submerged. That pumps water up into the blue tank or a tank in your basement that pressurizes and then gives you house water. This is your cap. You want to make sure you have a cap. You want to make sure it is secure. It's not rusted. It's not loose. It's not missing. This keeps bugs, animals from getting down in your well. I have seen a lot of wells. This one's nice. It's in the way back of the house, but I've seen a lot of these drilled right next to driveways. You definitely want to make sure it's marked, so in the wintertime you know where it is. And if it's close to the driveway, you want to make sure it's protected from a plow or a car going off the side of the driveway. You don't want anything to be able to hit this thing. So mark it with a flagpole, but potentially even and block it with a boulder or some posts or something to keep people away. But that's a well. I would also recommend having a well inspection done to ensure that your pump is in good working shape. They can test the amount, the refill rate, how much water fills back into your well and at what rate, to ensure you have enough water flow for your house. They can check, they can camera it, check the casing to make sure it's not rusted. They can do a lot. So if you're buying a new house, again, talk to your realtor. I think it's definitely well worth the investment to have a well inspection done by a well inspection company who can then let you know what you're dealing with. All right? Thank you.